Speaker, the member wanted to be very clear. Let us be very clear. If there's an election, it's because the Conservative Party has put their political interests ahead of the Canadian interest. That's what would precipitate an actual election. The member talks about children and affordability. Every member of the Liberal caucus is concerned about the issue of affordability. That's the reason why, Madam Speaker, we brought a tax break for 22 million Canadians. That's why we have a Prime Minister that has made the national school program a permanent program to support our children, Madam Speaker. That's the reason why we are investing in Canadians, investing in our infrastructure. My question to the member is, he has a choice. We can either invest in Canadians or we can do nothing. And it seems to be that the Conservatives are proposing to do nothing but want to have an election.
The honourable member for Chatham-Kent-Leamington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll thank the member from Winnipeg North for the question, and he illustrated again that math is not this government's strong suit. The last time I checked, they are not in majority in this House. They have not shown any willingness to work with the opposition. None at all. As I said in my speech, what they need to do is make the hard decisions, to prioritize and not add further debt to ourselves now, our children, and our children's children. That means hard choices. Absolutely it does. But that's the responsible thing to do rather than pile on debt. Over and over again, they're expecting a different result from the same manner of acting. Inflation always follows this massive overspending. It's going to come again. It'll lead to higher interest rates, exacerbate our housing crisis, exacerbate our food prices. Madam Speaker, math, balance. Is that really too much to ask?
L'honorable député de Montcalm.
The honourable member for Montcalm. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Regardless of what the Liberals say, this budget has health cuts. If you look at the indexation, it'll go from 6 to 3%, even though the system costs are 6%. At the same time, they're bragging that they're investing $5 billion in health infrastructure, building hospitals, etc. But that's over 3 years, first of all. And secondly, that's only about $300 million for Quebec, but it's not being indexed for the system costs. And they're making Quebec invest $300 million as well. When you consider that just the expansion of like Rosemont is really expensive, this is really a drop in the bucket. So would my colleague not agree that the Liberals are bragging and that that's really unfounded?
Honourable member for Chatham-Kent-Leamington.
I want to thank my honourable colleague from the Bloc for the question. Yeah, there are certain things that they are certainly spending more and more and more higher than the rates of inflation, and things that they are committing to less and less and less. The point that I want to highlight is actually the point that was brought up by the Public Budget Officer. Irrespective of the numbers that this government put in the budget, he is saying that there's about a 7.5% likelihood they're going to hit them. That makes 92.5% of the fact they're going to miss them. So 3% on health. Might it only be 2 or 1 because of all the other spending? Certainly our debt, not only the debt, but the cost of servicing that debt is growing much, much faster. So they can spend more when they choose to. But it's not on the social programs. Not on the social programs that we rely on because we're having to commit so much of our funding to servicing our debt. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, there's a narrative we've been hearing from the Liberals today, which is that the budget they've put forward should just be blindly accepted by all opposition parties, and that if we don't go along with this reckless budget, an election is on our hands. Now, interestingly, with a member as loquacious as my colleague from Winnipeg North, you can always find that he said something in this chamber. And interestingly, back when there was a Conservative minority government, he sang a very different tune. All of his messages, and I found about a dozen of them in the last few moments, were about how the government needs to listen to opposition parties. So my question to my colleague from the neighbouring riding of Chatham-Kent-Leamington is, when did it become the obligation of opposition parties to find support for government legislation?
The honourable member for Chatham-Kent-Leamington.
Thank you for my neighbour from Elgin, Middlesex, for the question. And I guess it became the obligation in the mind of the government with this last election, because he is absolutely right. It is the role of government to seek to maintain its own survival by working with the opposition.
We have to